Hello there, everyone. This is Dr. Stevens with a little information here on MLA Document Format. What do we mean by MLA Document Format? Please note, this is not documentation. Documentation is a system for identifying the source of information that you include in a paper. This is the format in which a paper is written, and we'll be looking at that. They are both governed, you might say, by the modern language association, all right? But one is format, that is the appearance of the document on a piece of paper, or pieces of paper, of course, but it is not documentation. Now, we're going to look at some aspects. I think I've covered just about all of the aspects of document format here, and we're going to also be looking at a sample paper so that you can see the format at work here in the heading and the title and the spacing and all of those good things, all right? But first of all, you might be asking yourself, and you should, why? Right? Why? Why do we need MLA document format? Now, it is not the case that, first of all, this is, Dr. Stevens' own particular idiosyncrasy here. He just happens to like papers that look like this. It's not that at all. Nor is it a matter of some kind of absolute rule out there that says that all academic writing has to look the same. But it is a little bit like what you might think of as a dress code for academic papers. And by academic papers, I mean anything that is written for an academic purpose, whether it is a short essay in a freshman English class, or whether it is a long research article that's published in a prestigious journal like the New England Journal of Medicine or something like that, all right? The Journal of the American Medical Association, those big name scholarly journals and so on. But it's like a dress code for academic writing. Now, you know what a dress code is. There are certain kinds of dress that are appropriate. What did I do? Misspell academic here? There are, certain ways of dressing that are appropriate for certain occasions. It doesn't mean that everybody is exactly the same on those occasions, dressed exactly the same on those occasions, but there are certain guidelines. So this is a little bit like that. There are appropriate ways for an academic paper to appear. And the MLA format isn't the only format, but it's the format that we use in humanities subjects such as English and literature. All right, so think of it that way. Think of there being something like a dress code for academic writing in the humanities, and that dress code is indicated by what we call MLA document format. So there are different things that we have in this particular dress code. All right, you have to have a heading and headers. Headings and headers are not exactly the same. We'll look at that. And since word processing is important in the matter of heading and headers, we'll look briefly at word processing. Spacing, that is line spacing, and margins are another thing that are indicated by MLA document format. All right, so spacing, extra space, and so on. Paragraphing is another thing that's indicated by MLA. Justification of the line is another thing. Font size and style. And then, of course, we'll look at a sample paper. All right. Let's begin with the heading. First of all, the heading goes in the upper left-hand corner. It does not go on the right. The heading, as with everything in the paper, is double-spaced. You don't double-space the heading. You don't double-space the paper, and then single space the heading. All right. The heading includes your name. In this particular case a fictional name, obviously, Tanisha, a student. All right, but it would be your name. The course, whether it's English 102, English 208. If you wish, you could use the course title, World Literature 203, whatever it might be. You can also use the course title. So if it's World Literature 203, the title is World Lit 1. You could include the title as well. That's the second part. Third part, the name of the instructor. Fourth part, the date that you are submitting the paper, the date of the paper. 4 parts, and 4 parts only. You need a title. In this particular case, Eagles and Doves. But a title is necessary. So, 2 things there that we've gone over already. I forgot to put title up here, didn't I? In my list of things we were going to go over, all right? So we'll put that after heading. Right? Must have title. Some of you have already discovered that I take points off if you don't have a title for your paper. That's part of MLA Document Format. So, that's the heading. Now, what does this mean? Heading not in header and footer. In word processing, there is a function which permits the automatic insertion of a page header. Now, let's look at the sample paper so you can see what this is. You don't see a page header here because we are not in print layout view for this particular document. But let's go into print layout view and you can see what it will look like when we print this paper. That's what print layout view, and of course I'm using Microsoft Word here. All right. Print layout view shows you what the paper will look like when it is printed out. So here we go. Whoops. Why is it not here? Well, it's disappeared, folks. So what am I going to do? I'm going to insert, so that you can see how this works, I am going to insert a header here, not a heading. Heading is that thing that comes once at the beginning of the paper. But we're going to look, actually it's not in the inserts. You are in a sense inserting it, but it's in the view menu here, as you can see, and we go to header and footer. All right, and we're going to put it on the right hand side here. So we'll look for, I don't see the justification, so we'll tab over here and we'll put it in, and we'll use my name, and we will insert page numbers, and then we will close it. And if I've done this right, now let's go in there and clean that up a little bit. Let's go in here and let's put a space between Stevens and the page number. That looks a little bit better. Now, if I've done this correctly, you should see this header at the beginning of every, right? You see it right here, Stevens 2, Stevens 3, and so on. All right, that's what we mean by a page header. All right. And headers, as it says here, are not typed into the document itself. They are inserted by means of that header footer function that we saw under the view menu. All right? So that is one aspect of word processing that you need to note. When you are word processing your paper and you're going to use a page header, make sure that you use the header footer function and don't type it in. All right, but the heading, I understand it's confusing. I get confused too. All right, but the heading, that is the information that goes at the head of your paper, is not typed in to the header footer function. Some of you occasionally will make that mistake, so please avoid that. All right, so your header, what goes into a header? You just saw it. All right, the header includes, this is standard academic practice, it includes the name of the author, so that's why I'm using my name here, because I'm kind of the author of this little handout, plus the page number. And that's what you include in a header in academic papers. Now, header means that it's at the top of the page. Footer means it's at the foot or the bottom of the page. And it's standard practice to put the page header either at the top left or the top right. I don't have a preference myself, and I don't believe that MLA Document Format says which it needs to be. But there should be, in any paper that is more than 2 pages long, you should have a page header. Now, word processing, let me say something about that. This is important. Let's go back to normal view here, just because it's a little bit bigger, and so I like the larger size. A note about word processing. We have already seen one aspect of that, and that is using the header footer function. All right, but let's note a couple of other things. First of all, let's put this in here. Use header footer function. Use paragraph format functions. All right, so what are those? Well, we can go up here. I hope this is showing up in the integrity recording. I believe it is. You go up to the format drop down, you go to paragraph, and this is where you determine what your spacing is. Whether you're using single spacing or, of course, we want double spacing in MLA Document Format. This is where you can choose the indentation. Notice this is indentation here. You can choose the indentation. In MLA Document Format, you are using first line indentation. We'll get to that in a second. Except for a works cited list. So everything is first line indentation until you get to the works cited list. When you get to the works cited, then you go back to your paragraph format and you choose hanging indentation and type your works cited list. Or you can do it the other way around if you wish. You can type the works cited list and then select it so that the entire list is highlighted, and then you can go back and check hanging indentation, and it will apply hanging indentation to everything that you have typed. All right, so in your word processing, for things like your indentation and your line spacing, you use the paragraph format. And what else are we doing here? Do not, right? Do not use the enter key to wrap the line, right? Which means that when you are typing and you come to the end of a line, you don't hit that key and then type again, right? And come to the end of a line and then hit that key again and so on. Instead, you just keep typing, such as I'm doing here, and lo and behold, it automatically wraps itself. It looks like I had hanging indentation set, right? That's why we got that. Okay. But do not use the enter key for anything except to start a new paragraph. So let's look at paragraphing here. As I was saying above, you use first line indentation, not block paragraphing. Block paragraphing uses no indentation in the left margin for the first line at all. There is no indentation. Instead, what you do in block paragraphing is you insert extra space between paragraphs. And your paragraph format, no, your paragraph format, I think in Microsoft Word does not actually have that option. Indentation, it might be under body text, but I'm not sure. So we're not going to go there, all right? But anyway, in block paragraphing, you have extra space between paragraphs. MLA Document Format does not use block paragraphing. It uses first line indentation, no extra space, right? You see that right here? No extra space between paragraphs, and also no extra space anywhere else in the paper. There is no extra space in your works cited list. There is no extra space between the end of your paper and the works cited list, unless, of course, you have a long works cited list and that goes on a separate page, which that's possible also. You may do that. But there's no extra space otherwise. There is no extra space within the works cited list. There is no extra space in the heading, and there is no extra space between the heading and the title, and between the title and the text of the paper. Everything is double spaced. And so when it comes to paragraphing, then, you indicate a new paragraph by using first line indentation. Spacing, then, should be clear by now, right? Spacing is double spaced throughout, and spacing is the same throughout. All right, same spacing, double spacing, no extra space anywhere, and then the margins. And you probably know this because I don't think anybody ever does it any differently, but margins are between 1 and 1 1/4 inch all the way around. You can use 1 inch top and bottom, that's fine. All right, but no less than 1 inch, no more than 1 1/4 inches. Now, your line justification. I think I've had maybe one paper so far this semester that actually used center justification in a great deal of the paper. I think that was probably just a mistake, so I don't want that person, if that person's listening, to be embarrassed by that. But don't use center justification, and do not use right justification. The standard is left justification. And so you know how to do your justification if you're using Microsoft Word. That's these things up here, right? That's center justification. That's left justification. It says align left. That means that you are aligning the text of the paper with the left-hand margin. That's all that means. Fonts. Don't change font. Use the same font throughout the paper, please. Do not change the size of the font. Do not use bold anywhere. Don't use bold in your title, for example. Don't use underlining anywhere, unless, of course, you're using underlining for a special purpose, such as to indicate the title of a book, but that's different. All right, you would not use underlining, say, for example, in your title, and you don't use all caps. Obviously, you use a capital letter at the beginning of a sentence, that sort of thing. But please do not put your title in caps, or don't use caps for emphasis in the text of your paper, and so on. So, same font throughout the paper. All right. So let's go through this sample paper. We've already looked at the heading. All right. Here's an example of what I mean. Sorry about that. With the fonts and so on. Some people will do this so that we get the title in bold. No, don't do that. That is incorrect. We'll undo that bold. All right? Or some people will underline the title. No, don't do that either. All right? No underlining. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. But you do want a title. All right? So we have a title here, Eagles or Doves. Notice that when we go from the heading to the title, same space. When we go from the title to the first sentence of the text, same space, double space throughout. All right? And we get to the end of a paragraph, and we have first line indentation there. See that? And again, paragraphs, first line indentation. Obviously, we're not concerned with the content of the paper itself. If you wanted to print this out and read the paper, you can certainly do so. This is a definition paper that was written for English 102. All right, it wasn't written by somebody named Tanisha, a student, obviously. I'm protecting the identity of the person who wrote this essay. And so on and so forth. And you can see this is the format is uniform. It looks the same throughout. There are no changes here, no changes in spacing, no changes in fonts, nothing unusual, just keeps plugging right along. Pretty ordinary, nothing exciting here. This would make a very, very boring web page, all right? But we're not writing a web page here. We're writing an academic paper that is theoretically designed for being printed out and circulated as a hard copy document, right? Okay. And we get to the works cited. Now, I told you that the works cited could be on a separate page. Rule of thumb here is that if your works cited will fit on the same page as the end of your text, this one doesn't. But if the works cited will fit on the same page, keep it there. Otherwise, put it on a separate page, and so that's what we're going to do. But notice, now the title of the work cited, which we have here, right? That is centered, but then notice that the works cited itself is in hanging indentation. Whoops, this is incorrect. I'm glad I noticed that. All right, that should be right like that, okay? Hanging indentation. What does hanging indentation mean for those of you who haven't heard this before or maybe have forgotten it? Hanging indentation simply means that the first line, which we have right here, right? The first line is at the left-hand margin. All the other lines in the paragraph are indented. Now, the paragraphs, of course, in works cited entries are very short. This one's a little bit longer, this one for Martin Luther King. All right, this has 3 lines, so the second and third lines are indented and so on. And that's it. That is what MLA document format looks like. Nothing fancy, very consistent throughout, very even, very ordinary, as I say. But important that you know this for the reasons that we gave. This is your dress code for academic writing. That's all I have. If you have questions about this, we don't have a discussion forum set up in the course to discuss MLA document format. So if you have questions about this, you can ask me during my office hours or send me an email, give me a call, and I'll try to answer your questions. That's all, folks, and thanks for listening.